Well, welcome to week 2 of a series we've been in called the Easter Pregame Show. I want to welcome those of you joining us at all of our campuses, downtown or Amarillo, at church online or watching on TV. We're glad that you're joining us today as well. Well, our pregame show is a little different than a normal pregame show. And in a normal pregame show, they don't ask you during the pregame show, those of you that are watching, to suit up and come play in the big game. You'd like that. That would be sweet, all right? The NFL game, basketball, NBA, whatever. You like that. They don't ask you. You just have to watch on TV. Well, at Experience Life, our Easter pregame show is different. In this series, we're inviting you to suit up, join the team, and play in the big game on Easter. Because here, let me tell you a little bit about Easter if you weren't here last weekend, just so you know. Usually on Easter, for most churches, and it's true for us as well, we will have more people, like thousands more than we will have any other weekend of the year. Do you know that on Easter? Thousands more. And usually every Easter, many, hundreds, commit their lives to follow Jesus. And so they describe Easter as being one of the best days of their life. Hundreds of people describe Easter 2013 one of the best days of their life. Hundreds describe Easter 2012 one of the best days of their life, and so on. So we want Easter 2014 to be the best day, hundreds, maybe thousands of people's lives. In order for that to be the case, 2 things have to happen. Number 1, we need Jesus to show up. Because you guys know this. Jesus changes lives. E-Life doesn't change lives. I don't change lives. Bands don't change lives. The one who changes people's lives, if your life has been changed here, you say E-Life changed your life. I know what you mean. You mean Jesus through E-Life has changed my life. So if we want people to say Easter, best day of their life, Jesus got to show up. So we're praying a lot. God, you got to come. Jesus, come. Do something awesome on Easter. And then number 2, Jesus got to show up. Number 2, you got to suit up. You got to suit up, join the game, join our team, play in the big game on Easter because we need everybody involved to make this happen. So we've been talking about in this series how you can suit up. Really, it's a series about ways you can get involved in our church. Usually if you've come to a church for a while, many of you want to get more involved than just sitting in a seat on Sunday morning or Saturday night or whenever you come. So this series is also about how to get more involved in our church. So I said the first way last weekend, suit up, join the team, is to start volunteering. We need many people, thousands of volunteers we need on Easter to make it a great experience. Second thing I want to talk to you about today is in your Bibles, Luke 21. If you got a Bible, why don't you turn with me there? Luke chapter 21, beginning in verse 1. We've got these easy to understand translations of the New Testament if you'd like one. If you don't have an easy to understand translation of the Bible, you can pick one of these up on your way out. Luke 21. So Luke, you guys maybe know something about Luke. Luke was a doctor. Do you know that? That was his profession. He was a doctor. And he decided to write an account of the life of Jesus. Well, he wasn't an eyewitness to a lot of this, so he's like an investigative reporter. He interviewed a bunch of eyewitnesses and wrote down this account of the life of Jesus called the Gospel of Luke in your New Testament. So one eyewitness, or maybe several, told him about this story that he writes about here in Luke 21, verse 1. And I think this is powerful, so listen to this. Luke said, while Jesus was in the temple, some of his eyewitnesses, people were there, they saw this. While Jesus was in the temple, he watched the rich people dropping their gifts in the collection box. So first off, he says, here's what Jesus was doing. One day he was sitting in the temple, and he was people watching in the temple. Some of y'all like, sweet, I'm not the only one. And so, he was people watching, okay? He was watching these rich people, drop some coins in the collection box. He was just watching what was going on in the temple one day. There's about 13 collection boxes in the temple. He's watching them drop these coins. Collection box. Luke records, then a poor widow came by and dropped in 2 small coins into the collection box. I tell you the truth, Jesus said, the poor widow has given more than all the rest of them. The poor widow has given more than the rich people. Now, if you were sitting there, and Luke's interviewing these eyewitnesses that were sitting there, if you were sitting there, you'd be like, Jesus, here's the thing. I know you're perfect every way. You get everything right, but you got this one wrong, Jesus. Let me tell you why. We saw the widow. She put in 2 coins. That rich guy over there, he put in 10. That rich lady over there, she put in 25 coins, all right? So you're saying the widow gave more than all of them. She did not. She gave 2, Jesus. We got to count here, okay? She gave 2. They gave 10 or 20 or 50 or 100. The rich people, they gave a lot. So the poor widow gave more than the rest of them. Jesus, that's not true. She didn't give more than the rest of them. She didn't. The rich people gave the most, not the poor widow. What do you mean she gave more than the rest of them? She only gave 2 coins. Jesus said, for they, the rich people, have given a tiny part of their surplus. But she, as poor as she is, has given everything she has. Whoa. So he's saying the rich people, they took what they had left over, their surplus, after all their expenses and everything they wanted to buy, had a little bit left over. They took a percentage of what they had left over. They didn't even calculate the percentage they were going to give, the rich people, on their total income. You know what they calculated the percentage off of? Their surplus. Spent all this money, got a little bit left over. They took a little percentage, Jesus said, of that, and they were dropping it in the collection boxes. It just ended up being more than this poor widow. So they didn't give very much, according to Jesus, just a tiny percentage of their surplus. But he says of the poor widow, she gave everything she had to live on. So what percentage of her income did she give in the collection boxes, the 2 coins? 100%. So the rich people might have given it 1% or 0.5%. It was just a tiny part of their surplus. She gave 100%, trusting that God would provide for her. So Jesus is saying, hey, it's about the percentage. And she's given way more than the rest of these people. Because the greater the percentage, the greater the sacrifice. So he's talking to these people, these eyewitnesses. They're there saying, hey, that poor widow, even though she only gave 2 coins, it was less than the rich people. She really gave more than all of them because she gave everything she had. So what's his point? You read this, it's kind of powerful. You're like, what's he trying to say about like generosity here? What's Jesus trying to say? Well, 2 things. First of all, I think he wants us to think of giving. When you give to charities, I know many of you give to places, charities or churches or whatever you give to. I think he's saying we should think about giving in terms of percentages, not dollar amounts. When you think about how much you give away, think about it in terms of a percent of your income rather than a dollar amount. So here's a great exercise. This might surprise you. This might actually be a little embarrassing, but try this. Go home today after service, and when you're hanging out and you're trying to figure out what you should do, okay? Why don't you get your tax returns you've filed, hopefully by now, maybe this year, okay? And figure out what your income was last year, 2013, and then figure out what you gave away, okay? It should be listed on your tax return unless it was just to individuals and not nonprofits, and you can add that in, okay? And then figure out the percentage of your income in 2013 that you gave away. It'd just be interesting to know. What percentage of your income in 2013 did you give away? Because here's what a lot of times we do when we focus on dollar amount. We think to ourselves, hey, last year I remember giving $50 to that one church. I remember that. I remember giving $25 here to that charity and $25 to that other charity. I remember giving like $50. I remember and to most of us, that's a lot of money. $50 to me is a lot of money. Sounds like a lot of money. But if you look at that as a percentage of your income, it might be like 0.1% of your income, and you ain't gonna brag about that. Hey, how much you give away? I gave away 0.1%. Beat that. All right. You don't brag about that. That's embarrassing. You're like, I'm not really that greedy, am I? Am I really that greedy? I spend it all on myself. Oh my gosh. Jesus is saying here, it's about the percentage because the percentage indicates the level of sacrifice you've made in giving to that charity or to that organization or to that church or whatever. So it'd just be interesting to know. You don't have to tell anybody, but figure out what percentage you gave away. For a lot of us, it's going to be embarrassing. But only by knowing it can you begin to say, hey, I think I need to be more generous than I'm being now. So that's the first thing I think he's saying. And the second thing is this. I think Jesus is saying, using this poor widow as an example, that all of us should give more than we can afford to give. Like that we should give like the poor widow who gave everything she had, that she gave more than she could afford to give. Not like the rich people who just give a tiny part of their surplus. It's like he's saying we should be givers sacrificially. We should give sacrificially. Now here's what's interesting. Think about this. Why didn't Jesus that day in the temple, when he watches that poor widow, wouldn't you do this? Why didn't Jesus watch her drop in the 2 coins? That's all she had. And why didn't he bring her over and rebuke her? That's what we would have done, right? You see somebody give away all they have. You bring them over and you're like, that was dumb. Why'd you do that? You got to pay for food, all right? You need some stuff. You got to pay for your rent. Why are you giving away everything you got? Like, why didn't Jesus rebuke her for giving away everything? Not only did he not rebuke her, he used her as an example. The people sitting there, he's like, hey, she gave more than the rest, essentially saying, you should give like her. Why didn't he say that was dumb? Because I think he likes it when we trust him. When we give more than we can really afford to give and we have to trust him to provide for us, he kind of likes it when we do that. That's what the widow was doing. She was having to trust God because she gave everything she had away. So her next meal, she'd only be able to have if God gave her resources. Paul, 2 Corinthians 8, writer in our New Testament, he commended a group of people, saying of them that they gave more than they could afford to give. Actually, he says they gave far more than they could afford to give. Like that's a good thing. And he was challenging the people he was writing to that they should be like that. That they should give far more than they can afford to give. What? Why didn't he rebuke them? Why didn't he say, hey, you are stupid. You give far more than you can afford. That is dumb. You need to spend that on yourself. What are you doing giving that stuff away? What are you doing? He didn't do that. He said, hey, way to go. You guys should be like them. Hey, way to go. Some of you may follow Dave Ramsey. Some of you don't like him. He is a financial coach has a radio show, helps you get out of debt, get money in savings, save up for retirement so you got some when you retire, save up for college, pay off your home. Do you know what the last step is in this whole Dave Ramsey plan to financial freedom? You know what the last step is? The last step is this, step 7. If you follow these baby steps, or at least if you don't, you've heard about it and maybe your spouse wants to and you're like, no way. Okay, step 7 is build wealth and give a lot of it away. That's step 7. It says build wealth and give. Why isn't step 7 in a financial plan, build wealth and spend it all on yourself? Like buy a boat, okay? Get a yacht, step 7, all right? Why buy a cabin? Why isn't that step 7? Nothing wrong with those. But why isn't that step 7? Because Dave knows that what the Bible says is true and what many of you have experienced to be true, and that is this. The giving is the most exciting thing you can do with your money. And if you don't believe me, it's because you haven't tried it. I can tell you firsthand. My wife and I have found that giving money away is the most exciting thing we can do with our money. So once you're building wealth, you get out of these baby steps and you got this money. It's not like you just want to keep buying nicer cars. I mean, finally you just get tired of it. Keep buying nicer houses, nothing wrong with those. But at some point you just go, I have enough, okay? And giving, Jesus said, we're blessed to give than receive. It's just more exciting. You're happier. And so his step 7 is build wealth and then give a ton of it away because it's just exciting. So it's like Jesus is saying, and Paul, and Dave Ramsey, those three don't really go together, but a break in there between the second and third. Okay. That we should give more than we can afford to give. That's a good thing, okay? That's a good thing. So maybe the second way you can suit up, join our team, get in the game for this Easter, is you can start giving if you haven't already. And find out it's the most exciting thing that you can do with the money that God has given to you. Here's the thing. Easter 2013, 2012, 2011, 2010, 2009, 2008, that was our first one. You know the reason we were able to have those Easter services? Because of generous people like you at all of our campuses. They provide us with the funds to hire a staff and to have video cameras, to be able to put it on screens and to be able to buy or rent facilities and be able to turn the lights on. Because the generous people in our church, we've been able to have these Easter experiences, which people have described as being the best day of their life. So I'm not going to have anybody stand or anything. A lot of times if you're generous, you don't even care about people knowing. You're just so excited to be generous. But at all of our campuses, the generous people, they know who they are. Would you help me thank them at all of our campuses for what they do and helping us do what we do here? I just want you to know we couldn't do this without you guys. So here's what's great for those of you that haven't really gotten involved yet, is that you can help us put on Easter 2014. They've helped us put on all the previous Easters and will also help with Easter 2014, but many of you can help us with Easter 2014. And we're actually doing Easter services at some campuses we've never even had before. And so we need your help. We want you. Oh, they probably have enough. No, okay. Come on. We need some extra help. We got new campuses. You can help us start even more. Let me tell you about the services we got going on right now. Some of y'all can, like math, you can keep track of the count here of the number of services we're going to have. Southwest Campus, Easter weekend. We're going to have 5 services here. That's where I'm speaking to you from right now. Southwest Campus. Count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. After that weekend, I will sleep for a week. Okay, so that's Southwest. Downtown Campus, we will have 5 Easter services. Right, DT? Right, DT? What's up? All right, 5 Easter services downtown. In Amarillo, we will have 1 gigantic Easter service. They got a big old room in Amarillo. Church Online will have 5 Easter services. TV, we'll have 1 Easter service. Freedom Campus, y'all have heard about that. If you weren't here last weekend, it's our new campus in the Lubbock County Detention Center. Told you last week, in first week in the Freedom Campus, they had 70 inmates, 70 men come, and many of them committed their lives to follow Jesus. You know what happened last weekend? Second weekend, 75 men came, and 19 more indicated they were committing their life to Christ. Second week, the Freedom Campus. Isn't that awesome? They went from 70 to 75. Usually when you launch a campus, your first weekend's the largest, you drop down, and then you grow from there. They've grown in even the second week. Then the last campus, we have a college campus now. We'll have 1 Easter service there. The Tuesday following Easter meets in a Citibank auditorium. We've had hundreds of college students coming. I've only been in it about 9 weeks now, and we've had over 50 college students, 50, indicate they were committing their lives to Christ in 9 weeks. Isn't that awesome in our college service, at our college campus? So that's all. How many Easter services total? How many Easter services we got? Anybody count? 20. We have 20 Easter services, Easter weekend and the week following at Experience Life. We'd love for you to be a part. We'd love for you to help us put these on. so that many people, hundreds, maybe even thousands, will say, it was the best day of my life. Wouldn't you love to contribute to something that somebody says is going to be the best day of their life? I'm going to. I hope that you'll join us as well. And also, you help us start new campuses so that in the future, next year, I'm telling you about 25 Easter services and 30 in different locations. And we'd love to just get this good news about Jesus out into our region and the entire world. Well, as you can tell, this is a pregame show, which means I need some special guests. So would you guys help me welcome John and Colby as they come and talk with me some about generosity. This is Colby. He is our Director of Missions Mobilization here at Experience Life, helping us send people to the nations as missionaries. This is John, one of our executive pastors. He's also, some people don't know this, a CPA. And you're like, what does that mean? Okay, certified public accountant. He's a financial guru, so I'm glad to have him up here talking with us some about generosity as well. Let me talk to Colby, ask him a couple of questions first, then I'll ask John a few. Colby, how would you say that giving has changed your life personally?
Yeah, I think the best way for me to share how giving has changed my life would be to share a story with you. And when I was in college, I made some poor decisions and really wasn't diligent to pay off some school loans that I was accruing, some credit card debt, had a car loan. And so I just had a large amount of debt that was built up. And so when Christy and I got married, my wife and I, we had $45,000 worth of debt. And we knew that God was telling us we need to pay back to man what we owe man. And so very quickly, my wife changed my diet from Five Guys burgers and fries and Texas Roadhouse to PB&J and beans and tortillas. And it was rough. I love me some Five Guys burgers and fries. But so we knew that we did not want to be slaves to debt and that we wanted to be free to do whatever God called us to do with our money. So we made a commitment to each other that we were going to sacrifice some things we enjoyed in order to pay off debt as quick as possible. But one of the things we really wrestled with, and many of you may be able to relate to us in this if you've been in debt before or maybe currently in debt, is we knew that God called us to give back a tithe to him, the first 10% of our income. So we knew that, but one of the things we wrestled with is should we give above and beyond the tithe? And we just went back and forth with this for a little while. We're like, God, if we're in debt, should we be giving more than the tithe? And it was around that time that Chris actually gave a message on the weekend and was challenging our church to be increasingly giving year to year. So we left that service, and Chrissy and I were both like, God, okay, we know we should still be radically generous, even if we're in debt. And funny how God works. Right around that time, we had an opportunity to give to a couple of missionaries who were going to the Middle East. And we just sensed God nudging us to give them $500. And we're like, God, that doesn't even make sense. Like, we're tithing, we're trying to get out of debt as soon as possible. I don't know if we can fit $500 more into our budget to give. And we just knew God was convicting our hearts, and we finally surrendered to that after wrestling back and forth. And I can't tell you the overwhelming amount of joy that flooded our hearts as we wrote that check for $500 to those missionaries. And what came very clear to us was that if we ask radically and we give radically, that we'll receive radically. And we were asking God, please help us pay off our debt as quick as possible. We felt like at that point that we were giving radically for our income, trying to get out of debt, and we received radically. Check this out. In a year and a half, God enabled us to pay off $45,000 worth of debt, every cent. Yeah, incredible. And so we were really able to see God's faithfulness in that season of our lives.
It's powerful, Colby. Let me ask you a second question. What would you say to someone here at any of our campuses who would say they're hesitant to give? They just think they probably should, but they're just hesitant. What would you say to them?
Yeah, definitely. If you're wrestling with whether you should begin giving or maybe you should give above the tithe, or maybe you're in a situation like we were, where you're like, God, we're in debt, we're trying to get out of debt, should we be giving above our tithe? I would just encourage you to take Jesus at his word when he said it's more blessed to give than to receive. And I can't tell you, some of the most joyous times Christy and I have had is when we're giving our money away. We're just so joyful to give. And there's been times and seasons in our lives where we were stressed by finances, we're worried, and we would give anyway. And it was in those times that, and this sounds so backwards, but we would actually feel less stressed about money. It was almost as if when we opened our hands to God, that we felt less worried about our finances. And so, yeah, I would just encourage you, if that's something you're wrestling with, take Jesus at his word that it's more blessed to give than to receive.
Thanks, Colby. John, a couple questions for you. Why would you say this is so hard for people? Just giving in general. Why is it so hard for people, do you think?
Yeah, good question. I talk to a lot of folks about their money, their finances, and for whatever reason, even though people want to give, it does seem so hard so much of the time. And I see a couple of things that come up over and over again is barriers to people giving. And one is that we just tend to be so overextended financially. I mean, Chris preached last year about how 76% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. In other words, if you don't get a paycheck next week, then you don't buy food, or you can't pay your rent, can't pay your mortgage, whatever that is. So I see so many people really making the choice, instead of to give, to have new cars or new houses or hobbies or vacations, whatever that might be. Can I tell you a story about monkeys in the jungle? Just real quick. I don't think anybody's ever talked about monkeys in the jungle on the eLife stage, but it's actually kind of a sad story. Because in the wild, one of the ways that they capture monkeys is they use these big, heavy glass jars. And in the bottom of these jars, they put this food that monkeys really love. And the aroma attracts them, and they come to these jars, and they stick their arm down in them, and they grab the food. But the way the jars are designed, they can't get their hand out when it's in a fist. And so the capturers just walk up and grab the monkeys because they're so unwilling to let go of the thing they love. Now, I'm not comparing you to monkeys, comparing us to monkeys, right? Okay, maybe a little bit. The picture is, though, what I see is so many folks are unwilling to let go of those things that have them overextended, that they can't be generous. I mean, because let's face it, the reality in America is not that we don't have enough to give, but it's where we choose to spend it, right? And then a second thing I see that's really related to being overextended is just fear. Fear. I mean, people are scared, genuinely scared. I mean, if I give, what if something happens to me? What if I have a health issue? What if I don't have a job for a month or two? What if my kid needs something? Then what's going to happen to me? And how many of you guys a couple of weeks ago saw that video of the construction worker on the burning apartment complex in Houston? Did some of you guys see that? That was crazy, wasn't it? Crazy. And I'm not making light of the danger that guy was in, but I think so many of us, this is kind of like our financial situation. We just feel like the flames are going to get us every month, and we just barely make it to the ladder. And then you say, and you want me to give on top of that? That's crazy. That's just like jumping off the ledge. You know what I see over and over again, though, is people really begin to believe who God is and begin to believe how he wants to bless them. That begins to change. There's a great passage in the New Testament book of 2 Corinthians where Paul is talking to the people in the church in Corinth about being generous, about giving generously. And he shares an illustration that could have come straight out of West Texas. He says this. He says, remember, a farmer who plants only a few seeds will get a small crop, but the one who plants generously will get a generous crop. Again, he's talking about giving here. And then he goes on a couple of verses later. And God will generously provide all you need. Then you will always have everything you need and plenty left over to share with others. So get this. This is what God's saying here. He promises that if you will give generously, you're not only going to have everything you need, but you're going to have more that you can even then share with others. You know what? I think I know that almost every single one of you really want to be generous. And what I would love you to hear in this is you don't have to be scared. You know, if we'll release those things that keep us overextended and believe that God wants to bless us, then we can begin living out generosity.
Thanks, John. One more question. How would you say someone could get started in this? They're like, I want to be generous. I want to start giving. What's the best way to get started? What would you say to somebody that asked you that?
Yeah. You know, we talk a lot at eLife about next steps, about taking that next step. And we have a practical next step for giving. And it's called the 3-month tithe challenge. And it's taken right out of the Old Testament book of Malachi. And it's in a passage where God's kind of actually frustrated with his people. He says, you know, you are robbing me. I'm blessing you, and you're not giving back anything of what I've given to you. He says, but, okay, get this. If you will bring your tithe, and a tithe is simply 10%. If you'll bring your tithe to the temple, which was their church, he said, here's what I'm going to do. Now, don't miss this. This is God telling, this is what I'm going to do. He says, I will open the windows of heaven for you. I will pour out a blessing so great you won't have enough room to take it in. Try it. Put me to the test. Isn't that awesome? And so when you sign up for the 3-month tithe challenge, you're signing up to give, to bring your tithe for 3 months. And we even give a money-back guarantee. Here's what we say. If you give for 3 months, and then you come and tell us, you say, hey, you know what? I didn't see no God's blessing up in my house. You know, there wasn't anything I got. Then we gladly will refund the entire amount, everything you gave for that 3 months. Now, here's a cool thing. Since 2011, we've had 630 families or individuals take us up on the 3-month tithe challenge. And we've had one person come back and say, you know, I didn't see God's blessing, and we gladly gave them back everything they had given. Now, as Chris said, I'm a numbers guy, so I can tell you that 1 out of 630 is 0.16% of the people have said, you know, this didn't work. This doesn't work. But what that means is 99.84% of the people have told us, if by their silence, if no other way, that, hey, this works. God bless us. Now, I don't know about you, but 99.84%, that's pretty good odds. I've never played the lottery, but if they told me I had a 99.84% chance of winning, I would take my check this week. I'd take Chris's check before I gave it to him, and I would play the lottery, man. I'd be playing. So my encouragement to you would be, you know, get God's blessing with your finances. Get it. Get it. You know, you heard Colby and Christy's story. I mean, they gave when it didn't even seem rational. It actually seemed foolish. And God blessed their obedience. And some of you need to take that next step and take the 3-month tithe challenge. And on the card you got as you came in the door today, there's a tear off on the bottom. And on the back side of that tear off, there's a box called I Want to Start Tithing. Check that box. I want to start tithing. Flip that card over, fill out the other information. Then as you leave, you can slip it in a giving box, or you can take it to the Next Step Center and hand it to somebody. And if you'll do that, we'll get you started today on the 3-month tithe challenge.
Thanks, John. So the challenge from these guys and kind of this message is this, that the second way you can suit up and join the team and play a big role this Easter is by starting to give. For some of you, it may be to start at 10%, like John's talking about, and we'll let you try it out for 3 months and see how it goes. I mean, that's $1 for every $10 you make. Hopefully it's not the stopping point, the end point. It's just kind of getting started in generosity. It's not a whole lot if you think about it. Hopefully it's a good place to start, and in the challenge, the 3-month tithe challenge is a great way for you to try it out. If you're already there, you're like, man, I've been doing that for years because I'm way ahead of you. I've been doing that for years. What you can do is what my wife and I have been doing ever since we started tithing when we got married is we've been trying to increase by a percentage or more a year. Again, it's not about dollar amount according to Jesus. It's about percentage, sacrifice. We're able to give more away this year we've ever given in our lives because we just continue to challenge ourselves to keep increasing in generosity. Now, if you think I'm totally nuts, you're like, you're crazy. I'm not doing that. Why do you do that? because we've really come to believe it's the most exciting thing we can do with our money. I could go buy a newer car, but my car's fine. I go buy a newer, I can go buy something else, but that's fine. You can buy things, there's nothing wrong with that. But I'm telling you, if you buy things and then as a result of buying things, you're not being generous or able to give, you're not having as much fun as you could have. Because Jesus wasn't joking when he says more blessed to give than receive. He's serious. And we found that to be true. And if you haven't found that to be true and you're like, I don't think so, it's because you haven't tried. So I'm challenging you to try. And by giving, being generous even toward experienced life, you can help us this year, Easter 2014, make it an Easter that some people, hopefully hundreds, maybe even thousands, will never forget. And they'll describe it as the best day of their life. Would you join our team? Would you suit up and get in the game? We need your help this Easter. We're excited to see what God's going to do. Let me pray for you as we close. God, thanks for this challenge. I know that this subject can be tough for a lot of us to hear because if we had to be honest, we're a very greedy generation and a very greedy culture. And once we pull up that percentage later on that we gave of our income last year, it's probably not going to be pretty for most of us. And like John was saying, I know most people here would say, I want to be generous. Even if I'm not, I want to be. And so God, I pray that people today take a next step. They jump to the tithe, the 10%, or to 11% if they're already there, or to 12% if they were at 11%. They just jump. And they continue to grow and increase in generosity because it's the most exciting way we can use our money. And because we want to be like the poor widow, we want to give like her. Give so much we have to trust Jesus rather than giving so little we got plenty that we're hoarding and keeping for ourselves. We don't want to give like the rich people in the story. We want to give like the poor widow. God, I need help with that. We all need help with that. Would you help us get there? God, would you help us to really believe Jesus wasn't lying, he wasn't joking. He was totally serious when he said, you're more blessed. It's more blessed to give. You're happier. You're more filled with joy when you give than just receiving all the time. So God, help us to be a giving church. We pray we'd be able to host 20 Easter services this year and 25 or more next year, 30, 40. We'd love to have tons of campuses all across this region, around the world, telling people the great news about Jesus. God, thanks for the people already in the game and being generous toward our church. And I pray that you'd raise up many more, thousands more to join us. They'd see themselves not just as givers to a church, but investors in a mission that's changing the world. God, we want to be a part of what you're doing in this world. Thank you that you allow us to. In Jesus' name, amen. Thanks for checking out one of our messages today. For more information about our church or to watch other messages, you can go to our website at experiencelifenow.com. Let us know if we can serve you in any way, and we hope to see you real soon.